Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show on back-to-back nights, especially with a night like this. We had to hop on and kind of get you guys some news, some breaking news. But again, welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show. I'm your host, the Game Injury Doc, aka Dr. Evan Jeffries, and my man, the other host, Eric B. Mack, on my right. How you doing, Eric?
What up, guys? Doing pretty well, man. Another good evening of NBA basketball, like we've been talking about for most wonderful, perfect time of the year. Every night we get to watch some obviously playoff style ball, and tonight was no different. Obviously, with a little bit of a scary injury that
Yeah.
is obviously unfortunate, and I know we'll be getting into that.
Yeah, that's for sure. So quickly, if you guys don't already do it, please follow us on our handles on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, all those. I'm at Game Injury Doc, and then Eric is at Eric B Mac, and then we also have our Hoops Rehab Show YouTube channel and Instagram channel. So please follow, subscribe, like, comment, share, all the good stuff. We'll continue doing this throughout the playoffs and on into the future. But man, let's get right into it.
Ooh,
So Jimmy Butler went down in the first quarter with a pretty hard fall. He had Amon Thompson, you know, seemed to get pushed by Draymond Green, or was kind of just diving for the rebound, or could have got tripped up a little bit. But regardless, he took Jimmy Butler's legs from under him, which is always the scariest play in basketball. And Jimmy Butler landed right on his butt, basically his pelvic bone. And the first thing that you're always just worried about is obviously a fracture and pain, and it always looks so scary when it happens. And they
yeah,
also want to make
definitely.
sure that they obviously don't hit their head and all that good stuff, right? So we saw this early in the year, actually later in the season with Steph Curry, like pretty eerily similar to that injury. And Steph Curry is diagnosed with a pelvic contusion, like Jimmy has been diagnosed with so far. Um, Now, another person early in this year was Chet Holmgren, who
Right.
had a pretty significant fall, especially with his 7 foot, what is he, about 7'1" frame. He ended up being diagnosed with a pelvic fracture. It was like the iliac wing on the right side. So he was out for about 3 months, which was a totally different, hopefully, totally different type of injury. But I think they ruled that pretty early in the night. They saw that on the X-ray. So my main concern is that number one, they ruled out. Well, they didn't rule it out. They just diagnosed him with a pelvic contusion after getting the X-ray. The main thing with the X-ray is that if there's some serious, like significant fracture, you're going to see that on the X-ray right away. But there's a lot of
Okay.
hairline fractures or cracks that you don't necessarily see on X-ray, and that's why you would do an MRI. An MRI is going to give you just a higher sensitivity to it's think about it like when they do imaging, it's a bunch of slices right away. That's what MRI provides, and you're able to see a fracture with a higher sensitivity with that. So tomorrow he's going to get the MRI, and that will be the huge determining factor moving forward. What did you see in that play, Eric? What do you think about that play?
I think like if you're a Golden State Warriors fan, you probably think it was a cheap play.
Yeah.
I don't know the history of obviously Amon Thompson. I don't think he's really known as like a dirty player per se, and I do believe he was pushed by
Yeah.
Draymond, and it
Yeah.
it most likely was kind of like a freak accident. And you see a lot of falls like in the
Hmm.
NBA and basketball. This was it was a little unique, but usually you see like obviously somebody going for like a dunk, right, a lob, maybe somebody just taking a hard foul like while in midair going for to the hoop. So this one was like a little bit more of a freak accident, but obviously looked very painful nonetheless. And
Yeah.
even I mean, I was watching the game, I was like, oh man, and obviously like nowadays like I feel like most of these players they always shoot the two free throws, Like sometimes, like in the past, you'd be like, okay, it's a good sign he's shooting the free throws, but
Yeah.
they normally do it because obviously, if you, you guys all may know, if you get injured and you don't shoot those two free throws, you actually can't come back to the game. So that's a reason why they shoot them, just in case that they're actually healthy enough to come back. And so, I mean, it was one of those things that you had to know, like whether if it's very serious or not. With Golden State winning that first game, you knew that they were going to take every precaution necessary and most likely not have him come back. But yeah, man, I mean, in terms of like the play, again, I think it's a freak accident. It's unfortunate. And, obviously, hopefully Jimmy Butler's like okay for the Warriors' sake. And I mean, I had a question for you about it. So
Yeah.
obviously, like we're gonna see the severity of it, and I know that if it's like a certain type of hairline fracture, like it's gonna be recommended to probably sit out. And I mean, do you think like it's kind of trying to figure out how to word the question. Obviously, it's playoff time, right? The games are super important. Do you see a possibility that it's like he's just gonna play through the pain and kind of see how it goes, or do you think it's like obviously again depending on the severity of it, it's going to probably be most likely where he's going to have to like miss some time. There's
Yeah.
really just not much they can do. Like he's just going to have to miss time because it's not smart for him to play.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think, knowing Jimmy Butler, he plays through everything, right?
Yeah,
Now, there's always going to be a risk with playing through things. But if it's a contusion, and which is basically just a bruise to the bone, I think Jim Lee will, be able to play through. But when you have like a contusion basically of your tailbone or pelvis, every
sound good.
time you're running or jumping on it, you're like experiencing extreme pain, especially when it's like early on. So I think it's good that they have some rest in between game two and game three. They don't play till Saturday, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. So I think they'll at least give them some time in between. Now, the other scenario is if they get the MRI back and he has a, say, hairline fracture. Now, could you theoretically play with that? Yes, because it's playoff time. Now, can you make it even worse? Yes. Right. So
Oh, okay. That's
think
what I
of
was
like
wondering.
there's a crack in your wall, right? And as you see the crack, it's starting, right? And then you see it starting to spread, or even a crack in your windshield. You first get the little crack, and you're like, oh, it's not
Hmm.
that bad. I'm not going to do anything about it. Then the next thing you know, in 2 days, the thing is spread across halfway through your window,
Yep.
right? So that's the risk that you take with playing through a fracture. And then every time he hits the ground or if he falls onto the ground, it hurts, right? Like I remember when Steph Curry came back this year after having the contusion, he was wearing like a padding, but there's this one play where he got knocked down onto the ground and you could just see him wince in pain. And it was like, I think it was either the game before the Lakers or that Lakers game. I'm trying to remember, but you could just see him wince in pain, and it's pretty painful no matter what. Things like simple things like sitting down, him sitting on the toilet, that's going to hurt like hell right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the little things that are going to hurt, um, but we won't know for sure until we kind of get the news tomorrow.
Follow up question. So
Yeah.
obviously, like for example, John Morant, we know he's had a pretty bad ankle injury. They gave him a shot, right?
Yeah.
If it is a bruise and it's more of a pain tolerance thing, do you think there's like that kind of method? Is that even like heard of for that type of injury, or is that kind of not really smart to do either? Like kind of like the
Yeah.
ankle.
Yeah, I mean, there's always injections, right, in sports, right? So there's always ways to play through pain or, for instance, numb the area so you can play. Now, again, it like my big determining factor is whether or not he has a fracture or it's a contusion. And if it's something like a fracture, it's just risking more damage, right? So think about your pelvis bone is basically holding your whole trunk together, right? So it's every
Yep.
time you're jumping, that stability of your pelvis bones on both sides are able to just hold everything together, right? So if you don't have that, or you have a little hiccup in one side of it, you can compensate, which can lead to a further injury on that particular fracture, or it can you can compensate and it can lead to some other type of injury down the chain. So that's what you always risk when you try to come back from these type of injuries. You risk knee injuries, you risk ankle stuff. You just risk other things that you wouldn't probably normally be at risk for, because of the pain and what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like you like in a lot of your analysis, you always mention that like one injury could lead to another. And so it makes sense, right? You have an injury and you're kind of maybe using your body or a little different than you would normally, and it could
Mm-hmm.
affect another area. So I
Yeah.
mean, as we've been discussing here, I mean, it's yeah, it's obviously gonna be wait and see. I know for Warrior fans in terms of like how bad it is, and then
Mm-hmm.
again, similar to the Jason Tatum injury, it's like I know they're two different injuries, but it's kind of curious to know like how it's gonna affect their game, right? And
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler's Jimmy Butler. You know, he's gonna play if he can is on one leg or has one ass cheek or
Oh yeah.
whatever, you know. But
Yeah.
but it's like,
Oh
the way
man.
he plays, physical style, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a human being at the end of the day. It's gonna affect him.
Yeah.
So, man,
Yeah.
it's a tough blow, and obviously, like we want to see the most competitive basketball out there. We want to see like the best. And so when there is an injury, it's part of the game, but it's
Yeah.
definitely unfortunate. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
For sure. And I like to say, like, in playoff timelines are completely thrown out the window. Like if this is a regular season game or in the regular season,
Yeah.
he's probably out for a couple games at least, and possibly a week, 2 weeks, whatever that would look like, right? Things are sped up in the playoffs. That's just the reality of it because every game matters so much, right? So now Houston's already created some more momentum by just winning this game,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So it's hard to put a timeline on it. It's really determined by whether or not it's a fracture. And in my opinion, if they do say it's a pelvis fracture, man, chances are going to be slimmer for him to continue into this series, right? Not to say
Yeah.
that he might take the chance or it might be okay to do it, right? But chances get slimmer when you say the word fracture versus contusion. And like you said, like Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler have different injuries, but at the same time, so far they've both been diagnosed as bone bruise and contusion, which a contusion is basically a bruise to the bone.
Gotcha.
So essentially similar, but just different areas of the body. Um,
Hmm.
so it's gonna be a big day tomorrow when they get the MRI, just kind of determine what exactly is going on and if he'll be able to continue into the series and obviously play game 3 or not.
Yeah, I could imagine like kind of like obviously Tatum. Like I see him, even though there's a nice break, I could see him missing Saturday.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Warriors. Obviously they're it's 1-1 now, so they obviously have the mentality probably to take both at home. But
Hmm.
at the very least, they probably would think like, you know what, we got to be 2-2 going into the final three games of the series. So I think there's some strategy in place, right? Too, when you're not like if they were down 0-2, it's going into game 3 and they gotta get it. There's a different mindset versus being 1-1, and that's the power of winning that
Hmm.
first game. So it will be interesting to see, like you said, in the morning. I'm sure we'll hear more, and um, we'll see what the outcome is and how long he'll be out.
Yep. So as we find out more, I'll be sending out some more tweets and just some more videos on this. We'll kind of be updating as much as we can when we find out